You've been here before. Different name, different face, different set of promises, same ending. And maybe you've asked yourself, in the quiet moments when you're too tired to pretend otherwise, why does this keep happening to me? Maybe you've even blamed yourself. Told yourself you're too much or not enough, that you keep making bad choices, that something inside you is broken. But here's the thing nobody tells you. You're not broken. You're not choosing wrong on purpose. Your brain is doing exactly what it was programmed to do. And today, we're going to find out who programmed it, and more importantly, how to take back the controls. This is why your brain keeps choosing people who hurt you. Welcome to Unnamed Instincts, where we decode the hidden mechanics of the human mind. If this is your first time here, this channel exists to answer the questions most people are too afraid to ask about behavior, about psychology, and about the invisible patterns quietly running your life. Let's go deeper. Before we get into the reasons, we need to dismantle something. The most damaging lie that people in painful relationship patterns believe is that they chose wrong because of a character flaw. That they are naive, weak, addicted to drama, broken in some fundamental way that other people aren't. This is not true, and the science is very clear on this. What drives us towards specific types of people is not a flaw in our character. It is the output of a brain that was shaped by experiences we had before we were old enough to understand what was happening to us. Neuroscientist Bessel van der Kolk, author of the groundbreaking book The Body Keeps the Score, spent decades studying how early experiences are encoded not just in memory, but in the actual structure and chemistry of the brain. His research showed that the nervous system of a child raised in unpredictable, emotionally unsafe, or inconsistent environments does not just carry memories of those experiences, it physically adapts to them, tuning itself to expect, detect, and respond to those specific emotional patterns. And here is the part that changes everything. When that child grows into an adult and enters a relationship that triggers those same emotional patterns, even if those patterns are painful, the brain does not register danger, it registers home. That is not weakness, that is neuroscience. Reason number 1, your brain doesn't seek what is good for you, it seeks what is familiar to you, and if those two things were never the same, the pattern begins there. Psychologists call this the mere exposure effect, a deeply studied cognitive phenomenon in which the human brain assigns positive value simply to what it recognizes. What is known feels less threatening than what is unknown. And from an evolutionary standpoint, this made perfect sense. Your ancestors survived because they could identify safe environments from past experience. Familiarity was safety, but your brain applies the same logic to emotional environments. If you grew up in a home where love was unpredictable, given one day and withheld the next, your nervous system was quietly building a blueprint. It learned, this is what closeness feels like. This is what love feels like. Tension, uncertainty, the hunger for approval, the relief of finally getting it, these became the emotional signature of attachment. Now, as an adult, when you meet someone who gives you that same emotional cocktail, the push and pull, the warmth followed by coldness, the intensity, and then the withdrawal, something inside you leans in. Not because you want to be hurt, because some part of you has always recognized this feeling. As Chelsea Psychology puts it, the brain seeks out relationship dynamics that remind us of our earliest attachments. And when those early attachments were built on chaos, the brain can become, in a very real sense, addicted to the chaos itself. The relationship doesn't feel safe, but it feels known. And for a nervous system that learned to equate those two things in childhood, the difference barely registers. Reason number 2, Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, noticed something in his patients that he couldn't explain through simple logic. People kept recreating the same painful experiences, not accidentally, compulsively. As if some invisible force kept pulling them back to the same wound, over and over, wearing different faces but carrying the same knife. He called it repetition compulsion. And more than a century later, modern psychology has not only confirmed its existence, it has mapped the precise mechanisms through which it works. Here is the core idea. When a child experiences a wound that is never resolved, a parent who withholds love, who is absent, who is critical, who is unpredictable, the psyche does not simply file this away as a painful memory. It keeps it open, like an unfinished sentence, a story that was interrupted before it could reach its ending. And the unconscious mind, with devastating persistence, keeps trying to finish it. So in adulthood, when you meet someone who reminds you of that original wound, whether consciously or not, something inside you recognizes the story. And it thinks, this time it will be different. This time, I will finally earn the love I never got. This time, the ending will change. Psychologist Janina Fisher, who has spent her career working with trauma survivors, describes this pattern plainly. Trauma survivors, she explains, may unconsciously seek out familiar dynamics in the hope of finally transforming them. But the ending never changes, because the script was written decades ago, and the only way to stop reading from it is to understand that you've been holding it in your hands all along. Reason number 3, and this one lives not in your psychology alone, but in your actual body chemistry. When you are in a relationship with someone who alternates between warmth and cruelty, between closeness and withdrawal, between love and pain, your brain is not just emotionally confused, it is chemically hijacked. During the painful episodes, the cold shoulder, the criticism, the rejection, your brain floods your body with cortisol, the stress hormone. Your system goes on high alert, anxiety, dread, the desperate need to fix things. And then they come back. They apologize. They show you warmth again. And in that moment of reconciliation, your brain releases a surge of dopamine, the reward chemical, the same one that fires when you win something, the same one that keeps people pulling the lever on a slot machine. Lise LeBlanc, a trauma specialist, describes what forms in these cycles as a neurological addiction to someone who hurt you. The brain becomes biologically dependent on the cycle itself, craving the high of reconciliation precisely because the low of disconnection was so painful. Psychiatrists at Arrowhead Behavioral Health who study trauma bonding put it plainly. This chemical loop can literally make the victim feel addicted to the abuser. This is why willpower alone doesn't work. This is why people in these relationships say, "I know I should leave, but somehow can't." Because the part of the brain processing that decision has been chemically restructured around the cycle. It is not weakness, it is addiction, wearing the face of love. Reason number 4. In the late 1980s, psychologists Cindy Hazon and Philip Shaver took John Bowlby's attachment theory, originally developed to explain how infants bond with caregivers, and asked a radical question. What if those same attachment patterns didn't just end in childhood? What if they followed us into every romantic relationship we ever had? The research confirmed it. Adults, like infants, carry one of 4 primary attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful. And the style you developed in childhood, based on how reliably your emotional needs were met, becomes the invisible lens through which you experience every relationship in your adult life. If you developed an anxious attachment style, because your caregivers were sometimes warm and sometimes emotionally unavailable, you likely grew up hypervigilant to emotional signals. You learned to monitor the people around you constantly, scanning for shifts in their mood, adjusting yourself to maintain connection. In adulthood, this means you are most powerfully drawn to avoidant partners, people who pull away, who are emotionally elusive, who keep you at just enough distance to keep you perpetually trying to close it. The anxious avoidant pairing, as Charlie Health's clinical research describes it, is one of the most common and most painful patterns in adult relationships. The anxious partner craves closeness. The avoidant partner retreats from it, and the push-pull that results feels, to the anxious partner, like the most intense connection they've ever experienced. But it isn't connection. It's the wound they're most familiar with, finding a new host. Your attachment style is not your destiny, but it is your default, and it runs until you see it. Reason number 5. This one is perhaps the most quietly devastating of all, because it doesn't operate through chemistry or unconscious memory or attachment programming. It operates through belief. What you believe you deserve sets the ceiling on what you accept, and the floor beneath which you will not walk away. Research published in the Journal of Marriage and Family found that people in harmful relationships consistently employ cognitive strategies that help them reframe mistreatment as acceptable. They minimize the behavior, they rationalize it, they focus on the good moments and convince themselves that the bad ones say nothing true about how this person sees them. And underneath that entire architecture of rationalization is one quiet, core belief: I am not sure I deserve better than this. That belief does not arrive from nowhere. It was installed piece by piece by experiences that taught someone, often very early in life, that their needs were too much, their feelings were inconvenient, and their worth was conditional on the approval of others. Dr. James Green, a relationship psychologist, observed that in nearly every case of someone repeatedly choosing the wrong partner, there was a prior experience, often a breakup, a rejection, or childhood neglect, that made that person quietly conclude they don't deserve someone as good as they actually are. Low self-worth doesn't make you attract bad people. It makes you stay when you should leave. It makes you explain away behavior that needs no explanation. It makes you work harder to earn love that was never yours to earn. And here is what that belief will never show you. You were always worth the love you kept trying to extract from people who had none to give. So here is the question you came here with. If all of this is wired in, the familiarity bias, the repetition compulsion, the biochemical bonding, the attachment style, the belief in unworthiness. Is it possible to change? The answer is yes, but not in the way most people expect. It does not happen through willpower. Telling yourself simply to choose differently doesn't work because the patterns operating beneath your conscious choices are not accessible to willpower. They live deeper than that. What does work is awareness. Deliberate, sometimes uncomfortable, unflinching awareness. Research on attachment styles confirms that they are not permanent. Psychologist Philip Shaver, who helped establish attachment theory in adults, was clear. Meaningful relational experiences, including therapy, can move a person from insecure to secure attachment over time. The nervous system can learn a new normal, but only if it is given one consistently enough to believe it. Trauma-informed therapist Janina Fisher describes the work as teaching your body that love can be safe, steady, and reciprocal, not by ignoring the pull toward familiar pain, but by developing enough internal awareness to pause at the edge of it and ask, is this actually what I want, or is this just what I know? The work starts with one shift in perspective. Stop asking, why do I keep choosing the wrong people? Start asking, what does this person remind me of? And what in me is still hoping for a different ending to an old story? Because the moment you can answer that question honestly, the pattern begins to lose its grip. 5 reasons, 5 different systems, all of them working at the same time, beneath the surface of every choice you thought you were making freely. Your brain mistakes familiarity for safety and calls pain home. Your unconscious mind keeps replaying an old wound, hoping this time the ending changes. Your body chemistry builds a dependency on the very cycle that's hurting you. Your attachment style steers you toward the emotional dynamics you learned as a child, and if you were taught, directly or indirectly, that you don't deserve consistency, safety, or real love, you will accept less, every single time. But here is what I want you to leave with. None of this is your fault, and none of it is permanent. The fact that you're watching this, that you're asking the question, that you're willing to look clearly at something most people spend their entire lives avoiding, means the pattern is already beginning to shift. Awareness is not the finish line, but it is the beginning of the only road that leads somewhere different. If this reached something real in you today, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and if you haven't already, subscribe to Unnamed Instincts, because what you don't understand about your own mind is exactly what keeps you repeating it.